You ready? Well, good evening, everyone. I appreciate you being here at this late night. I'm going to tell you just a word of what we're going to do, and then we'll do it. One of the important things that we need to know is God's plan and how to study the Bible. And the key to that is biblical dispensationalism. But dispensationalism, along about 1950, began to lose its way. And dispensationalism, if you recall, is mostly a series of, say, 7 time zones, or time, periods. But dispensationalism is not, that's not what it is. It's something else. So very briefly, I'm going to try to show you what dispensationalism, biblical dispensationalism, really is and how that affects our lives in determining God's great plan. Let's get one or two at a time here. This is very sensitive, I guess. It's like a good trigger, real fast. But interpreting God's great plan, his programs and administrations in the unfolding drama of redemption is our lifetime goal. That's what we should do in the span that we have of life. Now, if we do get a grasp of God's plan, we'll get the big picture. We'll get the big view, the long range. And God's plan is from eternity to eternity. It includes everything. I like this phrase. I've always liked it since I came to know the Lord. The unfolding drama of redemption. It's unfolding because it does go through those time periods. It's a drama because it depends on the decisions we make. Shall I go or shall I stay? Will he do it or will he won't? Decisions are the essence of drama. And redemption, that's all about salvation. We need a strategic grasp of the Bible, not the Bible on the coffee table, not the Bible that we don't read and study, but we need to get a strategic grasp of the Bible. Now, the strategic word there means we're in a warfare. We want a strategy to win. God's great plan. It's an interesting subject. We all need to know it, but only if we can correctly understand it. And how do we correctly understand God's great plan? What is the key? There is a key to understanding and interpreting God's great plan and the unfolding drama of redemption. That key is biblical dispensationalism, but we've lost that. Dispensationalism is no longer popular. Just a local thing here. 5 brothers were getting to go away for a weekend seminar, and they were going to discuss some biblical spiritual subjects. And one of them said, okay, but I don't want to talk about dispensationalism. That's how the world feels. That's how the theological world feels. Dispensationalism has gone out the window. It's in decline, but it's important, and we need to reclaim it. Dispensationalism, rightly dividing the word of truth, 2 Timothy 2:15, a good translation of that. Work hard so God can approve you. Be a good worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly explains the word of truth. Now, most of us, when we hear the word dispensational, we think of the 7 dispensations, and they've been very helpful, very good. But the truth is, a dispensation is not a time word. It happens in a time frame, as we'll see later. But dispensations are different, which we will quickly get to the heart of. What if the key to understanding the subject is lost or is in decline or is not interesting. People are not interested anymore. Then people will not understand God's great plan and the unfolding drama of redemption. Dispensationalism today, 2016, in all of its many varieties, has taken a wrong turn. It's going in the wrong direction. Classic dispensationalism, traditional, modified, revised, normative, progressive, covenantal. All these forms of dispensationalism have gone awry, I think. I did have a little handout to get some input from you. In it, I said that many speakers give their presentation in the indicative mood. They're telling you as it is. But this presentation tonight is in the subjunctive and suggestive mood. These are just insights that I'm putting out there to pound on to see if we can make them right. And maybe you have some good ideas to help along with that. What happened and why is it important? The key is not human viewpoint. That's what we've had up until now. Human viewpoint dispensationalism. Think I missed something there? Nor is the key to interpreting God's great plan as defined and described by its critics. If you've ever picked up a book on dispensationalism and it's written by critics, you won't recognize it. The way the critics view dispensationalism is something entirely different. It's not even human dispensationalism, and it's a far cry from biblical dispensationalism. Now, the key is clearly biblical dispensationalism as revealed in the Bible and as taught by the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, I've had dispensationalism in classes in Bible Institute, Bible College, Bible Seminary, and it's never been presented as taught by Jesus Christ. But that's where the real dispensationalism is. So God has revealed his ways in his word, the Holy Scriptures, our Bible. The Bible reveals God's great plan for the human race, and to interpret it correctly, we need biblical dispensationalism. All of us human beings, including the angelic realm, are included in God's great plan. Note well, however, that the real key is not the whole body of human dispensationalists. That's human viewpoint, nor the whole body of dispensational critics, but it's biblical dispensationalism, divine viewpoint, worldview, and it has to do not with time periods, but with offices, duties, responsibilities, accountabilities, jobs, administrations, job descriptions, managements, and stewardships. Okay, summary. So far, what we've said is this. We want to understand God's great plan. The key is biblical dispensationalism. It was working very well from 1850 to 1950. There were conferences on dispensationalism, and there was a great deal written, a great deal preached, but then something happened from about 1950 to today. Dispensationalism was in a sharp decline. Who or what was behind this decline? What is needed today in 2016? We need biblical dispensationalism. Now, at this point, we're going to use an example of a human testimony. This is an author. We're going to look at his book, Ron Hensel, author of the book, Darby, Dualism, and the Decline of Dispensationalism. Now, this was the day that Ron was saved. He says, on that great day when my spiritual eyes were opened and I understood the biblical truths of salvation for the first time. Now think yourself. Do you remember a similar day in your life? When you come to know the Lord, it's a wonderful thing. And he says he was surrounded by dispensationalists. He was in a Plymouth Brethren assembly. He came to know the Lord. Then he went away to college. And when he went to college, he went to a college where all the faculty were dispensationalists. And Well, I'll show it to you real quickly here. He went to Emmaus Bible College. His faculty were dispensationalists. But the content, curriculum emphasis, they taught me about Luther and Calvin and Zwingli, as well as Darby, Scofield, and Schaeffer. But look at that. Now, these are human theologians. They have human viewpoint, even though they're seeking a biblical viewpoint. He says, Ron says, they, the dispensationalist faculty, introduced me to Bibliotheca Sacra, that journal that DTS bought and has continued until this day, and they taught other works which I would identify as the Academy. The Academy has come to refer to all the, well, let's see if I've got it on here somewhere. I want to move fast here. Oh, and this is his statement in his book. He says, while I no longer consider myself a dispensationalist, I still have close fellowship with many who do. I no longer consider myself a dispensationalist, he says in his book. But if dispensationalism is the key to understanding God's great plan, the key to interpreting the Bible, then how can he say I'm no longer a dispensationalist after he's been in the ministry for 25 years? What happened? How do we explain this? What does it say about the condition of our Christian fellowship and our Christian study in our schools, etc.? Okay, let's look at the title of his book a little more carefully, including the subtitle. Starts off with Darby. Who's Darby? Well, Darby's a man. He's a pioneer dispensationalist. Dualism. Well, what is dualism? Well, Ron says Darby's viewpoint is just a dualism that's false. Therefore, we have the next word, big word there in purple. We have the decline of dispensationalism because it's based on teachings like Darby, which are false. Therefore, dispensationalism is not true. That's his position, and he's no longer a dispensationalist. But look, he's talking about the 19th century roots of a 20th century movement for the 21st century application. He's in the wrong centuries. If you want to know about dispensationalism, what century would you guess you'd go to? Number one, first century, right. Okay, so this is where he starts to go wrong. And all people similarly motivated. Come on. Well, this would be typical. Tonight, my computer has gone out, my cell phone has gone out, and now my clicker has gone out. And next, I'll be going out. It's back with a vengeance. So anyhow, he's basing the decline of dispensationalism on the decline of 18th, 19th, 20th century dispensationalism, which was all man-made. And it has declined for that reason. So what we need is the biblical dispensationalism. Now, I've been interested in dispensationalism ever since I came to know the Lord, but I was surprised at what I'm going to share with you in the next couple minutes. But at any rate, when Ron went away to college, this is what he studied. He studied non-dispensationalists. He studied human dispensationalists. And he gave up on dispensationalism because he interpreted Darby as the originator, and Darby was wrong with his dualism. If the answer is not the non-dispensationalists, nor the human answers, or the human dispensationalists, who does have the answer? And this is the main point to make. The answer is Jesus of Nazareth and the inspired Bible. That's where we're going to get dispensationalism. Now, the dispensational parables of Jesus of Nazareth. This is a good place to start. Luke 12 and Luke 16. Let's take a look at that. Jesus taught dispensationalism using the example of a homeowner who has a person in charge of his household, with certain responsibilities and duties to other members of the household. Jesus repeated this parable and other teachings in all those towns and villages that he visited and taught. So when you break down Jesus' teaching, it has to do with a master, the master's manager, the manager's management, and the manager's managing. This is moving toward the essence of dispensationalism. It has to do with duties and responsibilities assigned to a person, and that person is obligated to fulfill them faithfully and well. Now, here's another example of Jesus' teaching, and Peter asks a very interesting question that I've never seen anybody comment on, but I'm sure they have. But Peter asked the Lord, when he was explaining this household management thing, "Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone?" The Lord answered, "Who then is the faithful and wise manager, the master whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance in the proper time?" Now this passage has the word dispensation 3 times, once as a noun, another as a noun, and another as a verb. But it's a word for dispensation. So this should be the foundation and the basis that we build our doctrine of dispensationalism on. This is the word, dispensationalism. The manager, that's a dispensationalist. The master, now this guy hired the manager, and the manager has been given a job description, and he's got to fulfill it. And if he fulfills it well, he's rewarded. And if he fulfills it poorly, he's not. But the point is Peter's question. Peter asked, "Are you telling this parable to us, the 12, or to everyone?" And here's the surprising answer. It was surprising to me. Maybe it'll be surprising to you. The answer is everyone. The answer is this. There are major dispensations that are given to persons, like a major dispensation was given to Abraham. A major dispensation was given to Moses. A major dispensation was given to Paul. But every human being has been given a dispensation, and more than one. For example, if you are a husband, you are to manage your marriage and your family and your children. If you are a logger, that's your dispensation. If you do it well, you'll be rewarded. But in the Bible, a dispensation is a job description given to a person who is a manager, and his job is to manage that job description and to do a good job with it. Okay, here's a little Greek thrown in. Notice that the word manager, management, and to manage, all the word, one word, two noun forms in a verbal form. But this is where you have to build the doctrine of dispensations, on the word for dispensation. Also notice at the top line, that word for dispensation there is divided into 2 parts. The first part is oikos. And you know what that stands for? House. And the second part, nomos. That's law. So this word dispensation in its derivation is house law. The house is God's house. And the managers are the people of the world in various times. We're going to explain that time period too in a way that was helpful to me. So let's look at Luke 16. We haven't seen this passage yet. Jesus told his disciples there was a rich man. Now the rich man here is the master, the Lord and master, whose manager, that's the word for dispensation. He's a dispensationalist. He's a steward. He's a administrator. He's a manager. He was accused of wasting his possessions. The rich man accused the manager of wasting the rich man's possessions. So he called him in and asked him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your dispensation, because you cannot be the dispenser any longer." Now, this is kind of interesting here. This is where we get the time element. From the time the manager was hired to the time the manager was fired, that's a time period. So every dispensation is in a time period, but it's not the time period. The dispensation are the duties and responsibilities of managing a master's home or his business, whatever. So here's four words used in all of our modern translations, and King James concentrates on the first one, dispensation. But the NIV and all the others, they use administration, stewardship, management for the same word. Just to emphasize, here are occurrences of the word dispensation in the New Testament. Every one of those can be rendered manager, steward, or administrator, or the various forms of that word. This is the noun. This is the management. This is the job description. This is what this person who's been appointed manager is to manage. And then the act of managing it is the verb. But they're all words that are the word dispensational, dispensationalist. To be a manager, to be a steward, to be an administrator is to be a dispensationalist. So the main point, as I see it tonight, is every believer is a dispensationalist. Every believer has a dispensation committed to them. Now, Paul had a major dispensation committed to him, as we'll see. And so did Abraham, and so did Moses. But a child, when given a set of chores to do, that's the child's dispensation. That's what he's to manage. And some are going to manage it better than others. And the pastor has been given his pastorate. That's his dispensation. And just think of it. There are just many, many dispensations that are given out by God to people. So that Paul had one of the most major important dispensations ever committed to him. But all of us have dispensations committed to us. But now here's the practical side of it. This is what Jeff preached on Sunday morning in the sense of rewards and punishments. This is what we're missing. The way that you fulfill your dispensation or your management or your stewardship or your administration is going to be evaluated and judged. And I think the new slant that's only come out, I think, fairly recently, is the severity of the judgment. Jeff preached on outer darkness. Those three passages in Matthew. Outer darkness. A person, a dispensationalist, an administrator, is cast into the outer darkness, not allowed to attend some important feast because he handled his dispensation poorly. So you and I have dispensations committed to us. We need to handle them well. And we don't, lots of people don't even know we have a dispensation committed to us. Not one, but several. Ephesians 3:1. Now what we're doing here, we're going to take the same verse and just give it in three different translations to show you something. Paul was committed a dispensation. I, Paul, if you've heard of the dispensation of the grace of God, which is given me to youward. Now this would be like King James Version, New King James Version, 1901, etc. But the same word that we looked at and saw in the Greek is translated dispensation in those translations. Now let's take another translation. I, Paul, you have heard, haven't you, about the administration of God's grace that he gave to me for you. Here's his dispensation called an administration. And here it's called a stewardship. Same verse, same Greek word, but a different English rendition. So here's what is the essence of a dispensation. Dispensation is a time period only in the sense that it has a beginning and an ending. But the dispensation itself, the act of dispensing, is fulfilling a job description. In fact, in many translations, the word dispensation is translated job, my job, your job, job. That's your dispensation. So dispensation, administration, stewardship, and management are the big four words. But there are other words too. Office, job, etc., etc. This is biblical dispensationalism. This is not the dispensationalism we've had since the 1800s. It needs to be upgraded to 2016. Biblical dispensationalism has to do with duties and responsibilities committed to every believer, some huge dispensations and some very tiny dispensations, all of which needs to be carried out faithfully and well, because we will be rewarded and punished in the measure that we fulfill our dispensation. Dispensationalism, it's in the Bible, it's in the Greek, it's in the English translation, and it's biblical. And it all happened in the 1st century A.D. and before, not the 18th century or 19th or 20th or 21st centuries. It's as old as the Bible. The clarification of biblical dispensationalism was in the time of Jesus and the apostles, not in the times of Darby, Chafer, Schofield, Ryrie, Bach, Gentry, and Wellham. It needs oil, Jeff, or something. Go. What do you think? Huh? I'll go backwards and then forwards. It would be a pleasure from the standpoint of Satan to hinder our understanding, prevent human beings from understanding both God's great plan and the dispensational key. And I believe the powers of darkness and evil, Satan, have tried to hinder. For more than 400 years, there's been a strategic textual error in the King James versions and continued in the New King James beyond imagination and belief. Perhaps the key verse in the Bible for understanding biblical dispensationalism. Could Satan have had any part of that? The testimony of the Apostle Paul to the Ephesians, which was likely a circular letter sent to as many churches as possible, was that Paul's purpose was to make plain to everyone the dispensation of the mystery, or the administration of the mystery. The phrase mistranslated, or it's not mistranslated, it's a textual variant in the Greek. This phrase, the dispensation or administration, and there's your word for dispensation there, of this mystery, in Ephesians 3:9, which has been pointed out, is one of, if not the most important passage of Scripture regarding biblical dispensationalism and the great plan of God. The very next verse, Ephesians 3:10, states the purpose of Paul making plain the administration or dispensation of the mystery was that the manifold wisdom of God should be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms. In other words, this is saying that God's wisdom is shown by his dispensational plan. He did it this way to show his wisdom to the fallen angels. And the fallen angels took note and probably have done many things over time to just maybe, don't you think, these rulers and authorities, these fallen angels in heavenly places, did see the wisdom of God in the dispensation of the mystery, and then used their influence to prevent as many human beings as possible from also seeing the wisdom of God in the dispensation of the mystery. Plain, native common sense supports the idea that the spiritual rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms, namely angels and such, had something to do with this strategic textual era. The Greek text is without question properly translated the administration or dispensation of this mystery. Can this unexpected, unbelievable, inconvenient, tragic fact be explained in only one way, in my opinion? Satanic, demonic attack on the Word of God. Just to be really clear, on what word is removed from Ephesians 3:9 in the King James Version and the New King James Version? The word for dispensation of the mystery, the word for administration of the mystery, the word for the management of the mystery. That doesn't appear in those translations. Those translations have been read by more English-speaking Christians than any other translation. The word that got substituted was the fellowship of the mystery. The fellowship of the mystery. It never was in Paul's writings. Wasn't in the original. Note the subtlety, subtleness, delicacy, sensitivity, etc., of this choice of a word by the devil and his demons. Don't we all need more fellowship and certainly a lot less controversy and endless discussion of the principles of dispensationalism? I think that rings true. Well, here are the two words. Notice the similarities of these two words. One is fellowship and one is dispensation. They both start with O-I-K or K-O-I. They both have no in the middle, and one ends in nia and one ends in mia. So you could say that a copyist might make a mistake, but it's only in a very, very few manuscripts that were used by the King James translators, etc. I just like this rendition in the Net Bible. About God's, this is a quote, about God's secret plan, a secret that has been hidden for ages in God, who has created all things. The purpose of this enlightenment is that through the church, the multifaceted wisdom of God should now be disclosed to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly realms. This was according to the eternal purpose that he accomplished in Christ Jesus our Lord. This is something that's somewhat been submerged through faulty translation and through moving toward time periods rather than the essence of a dispensation, which is the management of duties and responsibilities. The administration of this mystery, this is the NIV, which for ages past was kept hidden in God, who created all things. His intent was that now, through the church, which is the center concept in the dispensation of the mystery, the manifold wisdom of God should be known to the rulers and authorities in heavenly realms, according to his eternal purpose that he accomplished in Christ. Okay, now we're getting, if you're falling asleep, we're getting toward the wrap-up here. A call for a more comprehensive application of these principles of biblical dispensationalism. In other words, what do we do now that we know that a dispensation is committed to every person, every one of us here tonight, every character in the Bible? So if we go back to the Bible and we study David and Moses and Abinadab and every character in the Bible and look for their dispensation, what was assigned to them to do, how did they do it? You know, did they do it well? Did they do it? It'll make the Bible come alive. Look for the dispensation committed to each person in the Bible, and we have something new and interesting in our Bible study. So just to summarize, a single great plan God has, several programs, many, many dispensations, administrations, and management, and we don't lose the time periods. They're there too. The 70 weeks prophecy, the 1,000-year millennium, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all there, and we need to get back to it and to really enjoy and expand and enhance our studies. This is biblical dispensationalism. based on the teachings of Jesus Christ in the Gospels and the teaching of the apostles in the New Testament, not our modern day theologians, of whom I respect and have enjoyed. And when I came to know the Lord, like Ron did, I read, I got myself a Scofield Bible. I read that little booklet, that red booklet by Scofield, that it was good. It was helpful. But this is even better. This is a step forward. This is moving into 16 in our understanding of biblical dispensationalism. This is required. Notice the word job, plan, job description, administration, management, stewardship. This is it. Just a little unnecessary repetition there. But I do have a final illustration. But at any rate, to arrive at a worldview in 2016, step by step, we need to go back to dispensationalism of the biblical kind, rightly handling the word of truth, understanding God's plan, programs, dispensations, and time periods, and we'll be on our way to having a better grasp of the Bible. These are programs that come to my mind that are helpful as we begin this more detailed study. God has an angelic program, including Lucifer, Michael, Gabriel, and the holy angels, as well as Satan and his fallen angels and demons. So we need to study God's angelic program. Then we have the Creator's creation program. This is an illustration where I think we really underestimated God. The creation of the universe and all of creation, including the creation of the angelic realm, the universe, and the human race. It's fantastic. And God did it. And it wasn't by natural selection, etc. God's human race program, beginning with Adam and Eve. Now, this comprises the Gentiles. Remember, those first 11 chapters of Genesis are all about Gentiles. And then the Gentile nations. And then that one unique chosen nation, Israel. This is all part of God's human race program. God's revealed prophetic program, beginning with Abram and focusing on Israel, the law and the prophets, and etc. And then God's hidden mystery program, which is what was committed to Paul. And then God's apocalyptical and eschatological program, which we're moving into in our day in 2016, focusing on Israel and the Gentiles in that final phase of angelic and human history, right upon us now. If Jesus teaches that humans are like managers managing duties and responsibilities in God's house and will be held responsible and accountable for their management, then biblical dispensationalism is the key to God's great plan. You and I, all of us, are dispensationalists because God has given to each one of us a dispensation or administration, management, or stewardship, or job, or task, duty, responsibility. And we are accountable to fulfill our dispensations. In closing, I would like to make one final point using the power of symbolism to illustrate the powerful forces at war in combating biblical dispensationalism. My suggestion for all persons interested in resolving this important and most strategic and intractable problem is to consider the following identifications of the phrase, American phrases, the elephant in the room and the gorilla in the room. Now, do you have any idea what I'm driving at here with the elephant and the gorilla? Well, now, remember, I'm saying that elephants and gorillas are magnificent animals, but there could be a situation in a confrontation with an elephant or a gorilla would be dangerous for you or me. An elephant in the room is an English metaphorical idiom for an obvious truth that is either being ignored or going unaddressed. Now, this is an imaginative picture in the boardroom, faculty meeting of many of our Bible institutes, Bible colleges, and Bible seminaries, including those of us here tonight who graduated from Dallas Seminary. There was an elephant in the room, at that original faculty meeting. Dallas was facing a whole lot of theological problems and situations. But unnoticed in the room was this elephant. Click, click. Uh-oh. I hate it when it gets ahead of me like that. Also, in many of those Bible institutes, colleges, seminaries, etc., there was a gorilla in the room along with the elephant, a gorilla. They're the two faculty members. Now, the one on the left looks a little like Zane, doesn't it? Don't you think? I'll take that back. Now, here are the two, sometimes tame, sometimes wild animals, the elephant and the gorilla. What do they stand for? The elephant in the room is the academy, representing human viewpoint. This is one of the two powerful forces against understanding God's plan and biblical dispensationalism, the academy. Do you remember what the academy was? John Calvin founded the Academy of Geneva in 1559 as a theological seminary. In 1873, in Switzerland, they dropped the religious affiliation, became a liberal arts university. But for 314 years, they hammered the institutes of the Christian religion, Calvin's commentaries. You had to agree at registration that you would accept, and you did accept the Calvin's great work, Institutes of the Christian Religion. Okay, all right. The term academy has come to represent all academicians, academics, scholars, educators, professors, and such. Its essence in this context, notice this, in this context, is human viewpoint in contrast to divine viewpoint. I love books ever since I was little. I can remember getting a 3-cent ticket that you could ride on the bus or streetcar to go to the library when just a little tight. I love books. But the academy is putting human knowledge, or it can be used to put human knowledge ahead of divine revelation. That's the point here. It's human viewpoint in contrast to divine viewpoint. Now, I know I get a lot of opposition here. This is a modern-day academy in Switzerland. These are the grounds of University of Geneva, where the academy, founded by Calvin and Beza, they taught the Institutes of the Christian Religion, Calvin's commentaries. But they taught it with, I had a good phrase and it slipped my mind, but with enthusiasm, dedication. They solicited leaders from every country in Europe during that period, and they converted, and they taught, and they instilled so that Calvinism still dominates Christian education throughout all the world. Somebody say something? No? In regard to the academy, it appears that the academy has become a symbol of one of the most serious failures of the human race, which is the substitution of the writings of human beings for the books and letters of the Bible. Now, the gorilla in the room is Calvinism, too, a different form. It is interesting. They're related, but the gorilla represents determinism. It's the very opposite of dispensationalism. Determinism refers to the predestination before creation of the human race, individuals, of unborn human beings to hell and heaven before they could have sinned or done anything good or evil. That's bad. I think it's bad. Most people think it's good. But I think it's opposite to dispensationalism. Dispensationalism puts the emphasis on your responsibility to make decisions, good decisions, not that things should be decided before you're born. The idea, even as a metaphor, of an elephant or an 800-pound gorilla in the boardroom with members and faculty, signifying that perhaps major factors were being ignored and unaddressed, is, of course, alarming. Look how alarming this is. You have both the elephant and the gorilla here, and They definitely are intimidators. They intimidate now, they intimidated then. It does make sense that both Calvinism and the Academy could contribute to a fall in the popularity and influence of dispensationalism in the churches, schools, seminaries, and denominations. Then those, I probably missed something there. Let's see. I think I cut this presentation down from almost at least a third, and I think I left out something here. But Calvinism and the Academy have played an influential role, or maybe I was just looking at the same slide twice. What we're saying here is that there is warfare, spiritual warfare, between evangelical wing of Reformed theology and covenant theology and Calvinism on one side. There was a real falling out called a rift turned against the dispensationalists, some kind of a scapegoat for the serious problems within the Reformed circles. I think I left out some really good slides there that really are helpful, but Magnum, a scholar from seminary in the Philadelphia area, wrote a dissertation at Dallas, and he documented, and he put 10 years of hard work into that, the dissertation and the book that came out later, showing that when the faculty at Princeton Theological Seminary was fired by the board due to the influence of biblical criticism, those fired faculty went to Philadelphia and founded Westminster Theological Seminary. And beginning at that time, there was a terrific warfare documented in his book in which dispensationalists, and especially DTS and Dr. Chafer and Schofield, were taken to task for all of the problems the Presbyterians were having. They blamed it on DTS alumni and DTS faculty. They used the dispensationalists as a scapegoat. Okay, now a final point here. A few years ago, David Pogue, a computer guru, established a series of manuals. Now there are hundreds and thousands of manuals on computers, printers, scanners, how to do all these things. But Pogue said, I'm going to produce the indispensable manual. Should have been in the box. That's his phrase, should have been in the box. There's an indispensable manual for doing these computer things. And he's saying that people around the world are using manuals not adequate. This is a typical one of his books. The point is this: the missing manual in the controversy over God's great plan, over the unfolding drama of redemption, over dispensationalism, that missing manual must be found. The one that explains what God's plan is, what the Bible teaches, what dispensationalism is. We need to find that manual. The missing manual is the Bible itself. Now, I know it sounds, in all the libraries of the world, there's only one book which is indispensable for understanding and applying the principles of biblical dispensationalism to life, to service, and to ministry. The only way to get biblical dispensationalism right is to base one's understanding and application of the principles of biblical dispensationalism on God's missing manual, the Bible itself, and the Bible alone. In conclusion, at this point, my impression is that the mistake of Reformed theology and covenant theology, Augustinianism, Calvinism, progressive dispensationalism, covenantal dispensationalism, and other such like theologies is, in their turning backward to the Commonwealth of Israel and to the promises and covenant of Israel, rather than looking forward to this new revelation, the one in that missing text of Ephesians 3:9, from the Father, previously hidden in and by God the Father. They're ignoring that. they're ignoring the whole dispensational thing. Well, who's going to win? The 800-pound gorilla or the elephant in the living room? I won't take you. It's too late to take a vote here. Who's going to win? In the court of public opinion, in this year of 2016, both Calvinism, determinism, and Academy human viewpoint win. They're winning over biblical dispensationalism, I think. I could be wrong. Okay, one final slide, I think, maybe two. In fact, both the gorilla and the elephant are on the same side, riding together into the sunset. They're on the same side. And I got a picture to prove it. And what we've got to do is we've got to deal with it. Any questions? And I'm sure there are, and I can't answer them either, probably, but any questions?
What is dispensationalism?
Somebody repeat that a little louder. These glasses don't fit with my hearing aids, so I'm without them. Say it again, George.
What is dispensationalism?
What is dispensationalism? Can you ask me that question after sitting here through all this? Here's what it is. Dispensationalism is a job description given by God to somebody, asking them to fulfill that job description faithfully and well and be rewarded. Or if you do poorly, you're going to be punished. Not a little bit, but punished severely. Maybe even out of darkness. And it applies to children, and it applies to chores and schoolwork and homeschooling, all that. Any other question?
Yes, you mentioned 1850 to 1950, it was good for dispensationalism, but from 1950 on, it was in decline. What was the one event or catalyst or book in 1950 that started the decline?
Well, if I fully understand your question, what happened there in the decline was all those forms of dispensationalism, like traditional, classic, modified, normative, they all had faults in them because they were making dispensationalism as being about time periods, when it's really about a job description within a time period. I think that... Oh, well, that's when the impact of the Academy and with its biblical criticism and of Calvinism and determinism and the rise of Reformed theology and covenant theology, that's when that all began to take place. Oh, yeah, sure. That was one of the slides I clipped out. I shouldn't have done it. I can't hear too well. What's that? What was the name of the book? Okay. The Rift. It was called something similar to the Great Rift between dispensationalists and Reformed theology. And it was written at Dallas as a dissertation and then developed into a book. It's very detailed, and the author, Magnum, spent 10 years on that project. And I remember the first dispensational study group I attended at ETS in probably 2000. He was the speaker, but I was naive. It was my first meeting with the dispensational study group. So he gave his presentation. And I went up afterwards and I said, how can you say all those things if you're a dispensationalist? And he said to me, did I say I was a dispensationalist? I'm no dispensationalist. But the idea is that was the author, and he was very charismatic. Does that answer sufficiently for now? You can talk to me later. Any other questions? I know you're tired. Here's a question up front.
In 1 Corinthians 12:28, Paul there's talking about the spiritual gifts and includes administrating as one of the spiritual gifts.
Which one? Which gift?
Administration.
Okay.
And how do you parallel that to this?
Exactly parallel.
As a double job description? Or?
Yeah, and administration is a perfect example of dispensational facts and truth, and if it's a gift to do it well. However, I haven't thought about that. You know, that's a new thought to me.
The Greek has a different word there than it has the kybernesis. Is that something? I don't know.
I couldn't hear. Trent, repeat that. Repeat that.
I probably can't pronounce it in Greek. Greg said it has a different Greek word in it than the one you were mentioning.
Okay, earlier, sure. Yeah.
I don't know if we looked up the other ones.
There would be other Greek words, and there'd be other words that would directly relate to duties and responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not too familiar with that. Any other questions? Thank you very, very much. Oh, you got it? Yeah, that's good.